The common good in relation to climate change is critical in terms of linking the resources of the earth with the resources, social resources of all people. So what Pope Francis has done is he's broadened out an interpretation of the common good, which is the good for all and the good for each person. But now he's seen it in the context of climate issues, because climate issues are underlying the good of all people, in that those people who are suffering the worst effects of climate change are also those in deepest poverty. So the economic and the environmental issues are very much intertwined. And I think this is where an interpretation of the common good in the way he's been doing it is particularly appropriate, because it's a common earth. So it's a common earth and a common future. And so the common earth is the earth that all of us share. It's our common home, our garden, as it were, common garden. But we haven't treated it in the way we should. And so the common good is about the way we should treat it in the light of the way we could have treated it if we'd been able to treat it that way from the beginning, you know, the Garden of Eden, as it were. Water, land, air and climate are the commons, but the common good is about the direction in which those commons need to be treated. So we can't share resources and see them as simply resources. They're about the interrelationship between ourselves and the natural environment, and how we need to understand ourselves as deeply interwoven, both between one another socially, but also interconnected with the natural environment. Just as the common good is the good for all and the good for each, conversion also is about changing individuals and changing communities. So ecological conversion is a community event as well as an individual event. And ecological conversion isn't just about turning to the natural environment, it's also about turning to Christ. And this is, I think, very commonly misunderstood, that just as Francis of Assisi believed that our attention to the natural world was part of our commitment to Christ as Lord, so Pope Francis believes that ecological conversion also is deeply Christological and theological. And so if you look at his encyclical, he talks about ecological conversion both at the very beginning and at the very end. And at the very beginning he stresses the environmental aspects of ecological conversion, but by the end he's deepening it to the theological basis of that conversion, which is a conversion to Christ. This goes back to Pope John Paul II and Bartholomew I and their statements on ecological conversion. So it's not anything particularly new, but he's used it in this encyclical, and I think in a slightly different way, and in a way which stresses both individual and community conversion. Because it's not enough just to look at individual sin. We also have to look at structural sin and how to deal with it. And so he's trying to sort of put steps in place for individuals and communities so that they can work together. Pope Francis has used the Franciscan tradition extensively here. And by that he means one which is inspired by the thought of Francis of Assisi. And right from the very beginning of his ministry, he emphasized three aspects: concern for poverty, concern for peacemaking, and concern for the creation or the natural environment. And so those three aspects of spirituality, as it were, are integral to the way he thinks. In addition, I think he also promotes ecological virtues, including love and care for creation as gift. And so the kinds of ecological virtues that he treasures are love, but also justice, peacemaking and mercy towards the natural world that has been exploited. And I think that sensitivity to creatureliness and creatureliness is very much part of or inspired by the Franciscan tradition. And so the Canticle of the Creatures, which talks about brother sun, mother earth, and all those kind of words that are familiar to us, is a way of actually showing agency in the natural world, a sense of agency so that we're part of that community together. But it's not what theologians sometimes call pantheism, which means a worship of God in the natural world. It's something much richer. It's about a celebration of God's immanence or presence in the natural world, and trying to to see traces, as it were, of the hand of God in that world in which we live.